Supporters who made the journey to Italy as they get a big victory there, which puts them up, by the way, to 16th on our big table, which we'll be showing you a little bit later on. Looking good then to qualify automatically for the knockout stages. For more on this, let's welcome in, shall we? Jurgen Klinsmann joins us, as does Luis Garcia. We'll be hearing from the boys in a moment. This was a fun game, wasn't it?
This was, well, as expected, Atalanta, top of Serie A. We've talked about Gasperini before. How he likes his teams to play. This was the Champions League winners against the Europa League winners. Real Madrid started really well, flexed their muscles, and then Atalanta grew back into it. And played actually the better football over the course of 90 minutes. But this was about big moments. Atalanta were creating more chances, they had more efforts, they looked more dangerous, but in big moments, big players stood up. Mbappe in the first half before he goes off injured, great turn, great finish. Bellingham again, solo goal for the third. And then Vinícius taking advantage of a huge moment, which is the deflection, to put the ball in the back of the net. So it was a decent Real Madrid performance and a very, very good victory. But boy, they had to work super hard for this. I mean, Courtois had to make numerous saves, and we saw that chance at the end. So they're a work in progress. But the good news is for them, apart from the fact that Mbappe goes off injured, but you said he's not too serious, is Rodrigo back, is Vinícius back, and Bellingham was their best player after a very, very slow start to the season.
Craig's right, isn't he, Luis? It was just that quality in front of goal that was the difference between the two teams.
Yes, and the personality of Real Madrid. Let's don't forget that when they were arriving to play against this Atalanta, everyone thought that Atalanta was favourite because Real Madrid wasn't arriving in the best moment. They won 9 times from the last games, Atalanta, and actually they start very well. But it's true that once again, Real Madrid, when it's need them, they just show up. All the players, I think that, and Craig was totally right, they had to work very much. They compete once again. We saw at Real Madrid that in the tough moment, they were solid. They were resilient. And when they needed something extra, well, the top players showed up. Jude Bellingham, I think, again, he was outstanding, not only in defense, in the midfield, in creation, helping the team on the build-up, and also arriving to the last third and into the box. I think that Mbappe showed why he is one of the best players in the world. He got 2 chances, one he put it into the net. And Vinícius Jr, even though that you could see that he's not 100%, Rodrigo wasn't 100%, so they still have not all the players 100%. They still having a lot of players injury, very important players, right back, centre back, players in the middle and also up front. But they're still managing to arrive and compete. That's Real Madrid. It doesn't matter the moment they arrive, if they are winning or losing in the games in Champions League, or in the Copa del Rey, or in the La Liga. In the end, when they matter the most, they show up. And today, they did it very well.
Jurgen, there's been so much talk, positive and mostly negative, about Kylian Mbappe since that big move to Real Madrid. Scored a nice goal at the weekend against Girona, and this was a great finish, wasn't it, from the Frenchman today?
Yeah, it was a fantastic finish, and I'm really pleased for him. So he's on his way to become the Mbappe that we all want to see at Real Madrid. And the other piece certainly is Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham more and more, puts his stamp on the game. He has a little bit of a slow start, which is understandable. He comes off a European Championship where he lost in the final against Spain and had a long season there. It took him a little while, but they were more clinical, and that's why they won this game. On the other side, I think you have Atalanta now, a team that we followed over the last couple of years, step by step, which really arrived in the top of Europe. They belong to the top teams in Europe. It's not a surprise that they are leading the Serie A at the moment. The football that they play, highly aggressive, good quality, fast-paced, high pressure under Gasperini, and you have players that can always make a difference, especially Lookman, and it will be interesting to see what happens to him at the end of the season if he's going maybe to one of the big clubs in Europe.
What they do and what Atalanta have done, and that's why it's been so impressive, not with every player, but they've taken a lot of players that have been struggling at other clubs, and they've gone in there under Gasperini, not just this season, but in previous 2 or 3 years. This is not just about this year. There was last year winning the Europa League, but even a couple of years before that, they've always been a good side. But they've taken these players that at the parent clubs or the previous clubs, they've been really, really struggling. And he's saw something and he's believed in him. Said, okay, they can fit in the system that we play. Lookman has had his struggles. Kolasinac has had his struggles. De Ketelaere has had his struggles. There's probably a bunch more. None of these players, really, you would look at them and say, if you looked at the top of this Champions League group, you wouldn't take these Atalanta players and sort of shoehorn them into other teams. But within this setup and the way that they operate, these guys just flourish. And that's down to the coaches and down to the manager and the club saying, you know what, this guy could do a job for us. Because I look at people like Kolasinac and one or two others when he was at Arsenal. It was a mistake waiting to happen every game, but he goes to Atalanta and he's doing particularly well. Just
going back to Jurgen's point on Jude Bellingham, we've seen pretty much every Real Madrid game so far this season, and we've seen the ebbs and the flows from his form. What's changed?
I think he looks a bit sharper. I think he looked a little bit heavy-legged 3 or 4 weeks ago. He looks sharper, he looks more involved. And I think also what's changed as well, he's finding himself more often, not always, but more often in a more central position. And I think at the start of this season, he was finding himself either on the left-hand side or the right-hand side for big chunks of games. And that entailed chasing back full-backs and wingers, which he did. He did. But it was to the detriment of the other side of his game. And what we're seeing now, we're seeing the work rate from him, of course we are, but he's finding himself more central, winning tackles, getting turned in good positions and playing players in, and then obviously getting forward himself. So we've always said that the more central you can get Jude Bellingham for longer in games, the more effect he's going to have. And I think not only has that happened, but we're seeing a less frustrated Jude Bellingham. I think the frustration that he was showing at the start of the season, when he was kind of out of position a little bit, as Carlo Ancelotti tinkered with how things were going to work with new personnel and Toni Kroos leaving, it's looking a little bit as if the players are happier at the moment with where they're playing.
It's no coincidence, is it, Luis? The best performances we've seen from Real Madrid is when we've seen Jude Bellingham at his best.
Yeah, exactly. We are talking about a box-to-box player. That freedom that is getting right now, probably didn't have it in the beginning of the season. Let's don't forget that he's a young talent who arrived to Real Madrid, had an explosion, immediate explosion, immediate impact, play every single game until the last part of the season, then get back to European competition, play every single game during the European competition, and get back to work with Real Madrid. Of course, he was a little bit tired, he wasn't sharp, as Craig just mentioned, got a small injury in that period. He kind of recovered himself a little bit, and now you can see that his work rate into the field is just unbelievable. Not only when he plays on the left or on the right, it doesn't matter where he plays, because he's got that freedom. Today we saw him in the goal just making around the right side, because that's what we got from Jude Bellingham. That capacity that he's got to decide where is the best space and where is the right time to use as a space. Those runs from second line are the ones who no one kind of get it still there. There is always arriving at that spot to try to score that goal, to try to tap it in or try to push that ball when no one is expecting him to arrive. So I think that freedom is something that he was expecting. And right now, in the last month, let's say, I think he found it because of this sharpness.
Jurgen, as a coach, how much do you have to interact with a player like Bellingham, or how much do you let him just play his natural game?
Well, I think, Carlo Ancelotti is a master in communication with his players. He knows when to interfere, when to talk to them, and he knows also when to leave them alone. I think Jude Bellingham is interesting to see, and it would be obviously fascinating to talk to him directly, what effect it had, losing the European Championship final against Spain. Because I think some people underestimate a bit the outcome of a loss like that. When you lose a final that you can only play every 4 years, you think, okay, maybe do I get another final in my career? What is now the situation? So I remember I lost the final in '92 against Denmark, and it took me months. It took me months to get my head straight again and play on the same level I played during that tournament or before the season. So I was not surprised when Jude Bellingham had a slow start into the season And also, don't forget, to find a chemistry then with Kylian Mbappe, a superstar coming to Madrid and playing sometimes in the position where you want to go and enter, you want to get into the box, and there is maybe Mbappe or there's Vinícius Jr. So that also took some time. But from a coaching perspective, Carlo Ancelotti knows exactly how to deal with them and when to kind of have a talk with them and discuss things and when to leave them alone. I think maybe in Jude Bellingham's situation, probably you just leave him alone a little bit to kind of start to forget that defeat against Spain, move on, and go for the next title possible. But it's not that easy to swallow stuff like that.
That's why us Scots never get to finals.
Because you don't want the effects afterwards.
We don't like the disappointment,
Yeah.
the hangover. So we always
just get out in the group stages.
Group stage. It's not too disappointing.
Lovely.
Move on.
Bish bash bosh. Move on.